With constant releases of lip balms and lip oils, lip stains, lip glosses, lip products in general, it is so hard to keep up these days. So today we are going to be ranking all of the brand new lip stains that have recently launched, and I'm going to be sharing with you guys my wear tests, all of my thoughts, and the processes that I went through to really figure out which one of these is the best of the best. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, then welcome. My name is Christina, and today I'm excited to be doing another lip product video. You guys really enjoy seeing lip product videos, specifically lip stain videos, and I thought this would be a great opportunity for us to really dive in again. If my hair looks insane, it's because I tried some like heatless curls last night, and I'm figuring it out. Please excuse the craziness that's going on here. So I made sure to keep a couple of things in mind as I was sort of ranking these products in my head. There's a lot of considerations, I think, when it comes to a lip stain product. I wanted to see, of course, how long each one lasted, how long the stains lasted on the lips through eating and drinking, talking, and regular life. I wanted to test if these were transfer proof and smudge proof and all of those things. I find that a priority for me is going to be the way these lip stain products fade. I want something that looks like a natural fade. I want to make sure that it looks good as it's fading because I like to be a little bit more low maintenance with my lip colors throughout the day. Of course, how they feel, if they're comfortable, you know, the scents of them are important to me as well. And of course, how the price reflects overall quality as well. To be completely honest with you guys, I was hoping that I would find a brand new like holy grail lip stain product, but we did not. All of these are pretty good in their own ways, but none of them were like blow me out of the water, this is incredible and life-changing. So all of that to say, there's still some interesting stuff here that I think some of you guys may like based on your preferences and what you've told me in the past. We're starting off with number 5, which is going to be my least favorite, which is the Laka lip liner stain. I first saw this on TikTok, and then of course, as it does, once you like linger on a video on TikTok, it starts to feed you all of the different videos forever. So I was like, let's try it out. I was already putting this video together. I got the shade Espresso Temper number 7. The shades look really beautiful actually. I was really tempted to get more than one of these, but I did just get the one, and then I was like, let me figure out if I like it and if it becomes something that I really enjoy in my routine, and I'm glad I only got one. It is a very creamy lip liner. Think kind of like a lip crayon in the sense that it's super creamy. It has more of a thick applicator, and it allows you to cover more surface area on your lips. And something that's really nice about this is it has a lot of blendability to it. While you can blend it out, it doesn't get streaky, it doesn't get patchy or anything. The way that I like to apply lip liner is typically on the outside, of course, and then I'll go in to my corners here and then just blend it towards the front or towards the center, and that's how I like to wear more diffused. So I wanted to note that because when you apply this, you do have a lot of playtime, but with that being said, I do think it may affect the longevity a little bit here, and I feel like the way that I typically wear my lip liner is very different from like the ads and the people that I saw applying this on TikTok. A lot of them would just kind of line and then leave it at that and then apply a lip gloss or something on top of it. I do like to diffuse mine a little bit more. Aside from that though, I do think that it applied really nicely and I had no complaints there. It is more of a reddish brown tone, so it can pull very red on my skin tone, especially with the lip products that I put on top of it. I like to go in with like a pinky brown, a rosy brown type of shade, and with a darker lip liner like this, it kind of accentuates more of the pink and the red that's within those colors. So once I applied this, I went about my day, and I want to talk about the wear test that I did here. Now, I tried to keep it to a 3-6-9 hour check-in for all of these really. Some of them are a little bit off, like 1 or 2 hours ahead or behind, and I will try to label that for you guys, but I try to keep it at that schedule so we have a little bit more of a controlled factor here. So for the first check-in, this was after I ate lunch, and honestly it was pretty much all gone except for the bottom lip. I noticed the center of the bottom lip and a little bit on the edges. There was still a good amount of color here. For my lips, I don't have a lot of of pigmentation. Most of my pigmentation is on the outside of my lips, but even then it's really not too much. So I feel like it doesn't take a lot for a lip product to essentially stain my lips. During the second check-in, it pretty much looked the same. I had not reapplied it here. I only really saw it on the bottom lip as well. There was a little bit more fading, but I feel like during the first check-in, there was already a significant amount of fading, so that by the second one, it wasn't as noticeable, but I'm pretty sure that we saw some pretty steady fading here because by the third check-in, I had a little bit of the product on the bottom and some sides, but it was pretty much gone on the parts that I filled in on the outer corners, like I said, where I typically will blend it in towards the center of the lip. And I really didn't see it on my top lip, which I find is kind of strange because typically lip products will stay longer on my top lip than my bottom, because when I'm eating and I'm drinking and stuff, my bottom lip essentially will just get a lot of transfer going on. So I'm not quite sure what that is about. I didn't really do anything differently this day than any other day. And then towards the last check-in, again, pretty much all gone except for the perimeter. And even then it was very sheer and it was very, very faded. I will say that the fade on this was very nice and smooth. That is not always the case with a lot of lip liners or lip stains, I should say. Sometimes they do get patchy. Sometimes they emphasize the lip lines on my lips. Sometimes they dry out my lips. I would equate this to being very, very similar to your standard lip liner. It stays really nicely underneath a lip product, but on its own, once that lip product has faded, then it starts to fade very evenly. And I will say that the fading started quickly. So again, by the first check-in, it was pretty much gone. It had already started the fading process, which was really surprising to me because again, what I saw online, this was like no budge. Even in the videos, they were like rubbing their lips, they were pressing their lips on stuff to show that it was transfer proof. And I guess I assumed that it was going to be long wearing as well because of that. I didn't notice a lot of transfer, but there was a little bit of transfer with this, but not enough to where I was like, oh, this is just a lip liner. You know what I'm saying? Now, the reason why this is on the bottom of our list is essentially because this acts exactly like a lip liner. And if what you're looking for is a lip liner stain, then this is not going to be something that I would consider is worth it. I think something that's better as a lip liner stain is going to be like the Fwee lip liner stains. Even though the stain on that is very different from the initial color of the lip liners, it still stains way more than what this does. The funny thing is, this doesn't feel like it has any film formers on it like some long wear lip liners have. So even then, I feel like it's kind of lacking there. Next on our list, and very surprisingly, you guys, at least for me, is going to be the Fwee lip contour stain. Now, this is going to be a brand new marker. I know that they came out with like a creamy pencil dual tip one. This is just the marker stain thing. It's literally called a lip contour stain, and I got it in the shade Babe. I liked the marker tip. I really enjoy how sharp the point is and how the marker tip is on the skinnier side in general, but I really, really love how pointed that tip is. And then it kind of angles down. It kind of creates this like cone shape almost, where you can utilize the sides to get more surface area on the lips. But if you wanted pinpoint application, you can use that tip. I do find that super usable, and I also think that the ink flowed really well. So I had no gripes about the application in that sense. I feel like the coverage though is very, very sheer. You can kind of see in the B-roll footage, you can see the skin peeking through underneath the pigment of this product, as well as where my natural lip line are. With lip contour stains and stuff like that, I like to overline just a little bit because my lips are a bit crooked, so I utilize makeup to kind of shape it to where it's even. And also I'll do a little bit of extra contouring on top just to give the illusion of larger lips. But if a product is too sheer and you can see my natural lip lines underneath, it kind of ruins the illusion and it doesn't look as natural. And that kind of was the case with this one, unfortunately. You can build up the color on top, but there is a sort of sheerness to it that you can't really deny. And because of that, I feel like it applied a little bit streaky. It was, like I said, red flowing out of the marker perfectly. So I do think it was a formula related issue. As far as the color, I have it swatched right here. I was really hoping that this was going to be kind of a nudie tone, and when you swatch it, it looks like it would be a nudie, warm, kind of leaning orange shade here. But then on the lips, it actually turns a bit more red. It oxidizes to more of a red tone, which is really interesting. Now, again, it could be the lip combo that I did for my wear test, but overall, even after I let this dry before putting anything on top, I just felt like it was a bit more red than what I wanted. And just a note for you guys, I wore all of these lip products the way that I normally would. I use lip combinations like lip oils and lip glosses that I typically would on a day-to-day basis because I feel like that is the truest representation of how these products would work on me. It wouldn't necessarily make sense for me to use one of these lip stains and then apply, I don't know, a matte lipstick on top because that's not really what I typically do. And I know that there's concern about longevity when, you know, you put a lip oil or lip gloss or something shiny on top of a lip stain product that's supposed to dry down matte. I totally understand that, but if something claims to be a stain, it should be able to withstand a lip gloss or something of that nature. You know what I'm saying? All in all, I just wanted to preface and let you guys know that's usually how I like to use my products, but if that's not what you like to do, then of course just take my information with a grain of salt, and hopefully you're able to see how it would work in your experience based on the stuff that you typically would use. Now let's talk about the wear time and the wear test on this. So the first check-in, it stayed in place really well. It looked super obvious as a lip liner though. I had eaten burgers. They were very greasy burgers and fries, and I had a drink and stuff. It did last a really long time. I felt like it lasted longer than a regular lip liner, and it withstood the lip product that I put on top of it, and it was still there. You could still see it. But after everything had kind of faded, it was very obvious that I had an outline of a lip stain on, and that's not my favorite look. I like something that kind of fades and diffuses and looks more like a gradient when it comes to a lip liner, and I can achieve that look with other lip stain pens, but this one was just a little bit more tricky, especially because it was more on the sheer side and it didn't really give you enough pigmentation to really work with in that sense. The second check-in here, it was still very evenly pigmented, but again, more on the sheer side, except on the bottom center of my lip, you didn't really see it much anymore. Otherwise, it still looked really good. It still stayed in place pretty well. But then by the third check-in, I didn't really have anything to report because at this point it had fully faded. I was hoping for a little bit more pigmentation, a little bit more playtime, and unfortunately the shade itself was pretty much a miss on my part because again, I was really hoping for something similar to the swatch right here, but it just turned way too red on me. Knowing that there are other lip pen stains out there currently that work a lot better for what I typically want from a lip pen stain, I wouldn't really suggest this for you guys. Next, ranking right in the middle, the Gucci Oil and Water lip stain. This one is, I think, the newest launch of all of the ones that I'm doing today, I believe. And this I purchased during the Sephora sale. I thought it would be a great time to test it out. I did get 2 shades, and we will talk about that in a second. Now, I will preface and let you guys know that I feel like I was very, very critical about this one because it's so expensive. This lip stain is $42 retail, I believe. So for me, I was like, oh, there's no way. I have to figure out if this is actually worth all of the $42, even though I got it on sale. As far as the colors of this go, I got the shade number 130, and I also purchased the shade 226, which I anticipated was going to be kind of a fan favorite. And the swatches that I had done myself whenever I was in store, I thought that it was also going to be something that I really, really loved because it seemed like it was going to be this beautiful beigey tone. The formula itself does oxidize a lot in my opinion. 226 turned out to be this very grayish taupe shade on me, which if you guys are not new here, you know I'm not a huge fan of cool tone lip products on me. I feel like they make me look dead. I do have a neutral, more leaning warm undertone with my skin tone, and when I go a little bit too cool on my lips, it just looks super out of place for me. 130 looks very similar in my opinion to my favorite Violette FR Rose de Mauve. However, this one is going to pull a little bit less warm than the Rose de Mauve one. I did swatch them here for you guys in this B-roll so you could see how these compare. And as you can see, 130 is reminiscent to Rose de Mauve from Violette FR, but it's definitely not going to be a dupe by any means. But if you find that Rose de Mauve leans too warm for you, this may be a good option if what you're looking for is a color that's similar. I don't understand this, but with designer or luxury brands, almost every time when it comes to a lip product, they make it smell floral. I don't know why that is. Is it because they think it's more luxe? Because honestly, you guys, it's not. It's kind of nauseating in my opinion. As someone that gets very sensitive to fragrance and has headaches that are triggered by fragrance, I think this smells way too strongly of just flowers. Now let's talk about the texture and the application. I really like the texture of this. I think that it goes on very nicely and exactly what I would be looking for from a more luxury lip stain. This goes on feeling like water. It feels like you're putting thick water on your lips and it feels very thin at the same time, which is a really interesting like tactile thing about this. When you rub your lips together, it surprisingly feels very substantial, like a lip oil, sort of like a lip balm that's actually hydrating the lips, but it doesn't feel heavy like you're dripping in lip oil, if that makes sense. Something very funny and odd, the flocking on this doe foot is insane. The actual like bristles are so long. You can kind of see it too in the footage, just how long and almost unruly the flocking looks on this. And when you're applying it to the lips, you can feel it. It feels like you're using fur to apply this on the lips. It's so weird, and I don't necessarily think that it's a necessary thing. Maybe it's in that more thin texture like I was saying. Maybe it requires more of a dense flocking here to actually hold on to the thinness of the product. I don't really know. That's just a thought, but it feels funny in general to me. For a lot of people, I'm sure that doesn't really matter too much, but I thought that I would mention it. It does give you that lip stain tingle feeling. With some lip staining products, like for instance the Rare Beauty lip oils, the Wonder Skin lip tints, those when you apply them, they kind of give you this film tingly feeling almost. You can feel it even after the product like fades or when you wipe it off. This gives that same sensation that those do. I really loved though how this looks slightly glassy without being overly shiny, and you can really see it in this B-roll footage in front of the window. It almost looks like you're looking at the color through a glass, you know, like it looks glassy and shiny, but you have a little bit of that watercolor type look when it comes to the pigmentation. I thought it was really, really beautiful. Now again, this color does oxidize a little bit warmer on me. I was hoping that it would stay true to the color when I first applied it, but that's just something to note in case you guys are wondering that about this product. Now for our first check-in, I was drinking coffee at Costco and I noticed that on my cup, I didn't have a lot of transfer. If anything, just the shine was transferring, the gloss aspect of it was transferring, but none of the pigment was transferring onto the cup, which I thought was really impressive. When I left Costco, I saw that there was a little bit of settling of pigment on the sort of inner areas of my lips where it looked a little bit darker, a little bit more prominent there, but that was really only if I was looking for the check-in, you know. I didn't notice it up until I sat down and I was like, okay, how are the lips looking? For the second check-in, I really did not like the way that it was settling on the inside of my lips. It essentially looked like it did earlier, but even more prominent than that, even more emphasized than the first check-in. It made my lips look super dry and crusty, even though they didn't feel like it. They looked way more dry and crusty than they actually were. Looking at it was very, very surprising for me, to be honest, because it did not feel that bad. So the third check-in, it looked way better, like scores better than the second check-in. The entire lip had faded in terms of color. There was no more shine left, but the inside, it didn't look so obvious. It didn't look like the pigment was pooling on the inside of my lips. The entire lip was totally stained and it looked really, really pretty actually. It looked like it could be a natural flush of color on my lips. It didn't even look like I was wearing a lip product. I thought this was probably the prettiest it had worn throughout the entire day. It was the in-between time frame from when I first applied it up until this check-in that I did not like that much. And then lastly, the last check-in, I fell asleep with it on. It was like past midnight at this point, and it looked like it was still there. Granted, if you looked at it, you probably would think there's nothing there, but again, my baseline is a lot less pigmented than this, so that's how I could kind of tell that the product was still on my lips. It faded a lot in the center, but you could see it clearly on the outer edges of the lips. So in terms of fading, I think that it did not fade well, but the end result, like that third check-in and the last check-in, I thought was really pretty. And it's so unfortunate because the time between, like I said, the application and then that third check-in, it just did not look very good. I was wondering if maybe you could remedy that with, you know, applying a different lip balm just to make the dryness look different. I'm gonna have to test that out for you guys. But yeah, the actual fading was not great, but the faded look was great. Now, do I think that this is worth the price? Absolutely not. It's so expensive, you guys, and it just wasn't like my dream product. I feel like there are so many glossy lip stains on the market that would outperform this, to be honest with you. It's nice that they have the option of a glossy lip stain because I do love a glossy lip stain, but it wouldn't be my first pick from them, which is ironic because this is my first Gucci product. Our second product, very surprising to me, was the Urban Decay lip toy. When I was reading up on this and I first saw that they were releasing this, it does have different power of stainage with the different colors. So the color that I picked up is the shade Fuzzed, and this one says that it has a low stain power. Now there are other shades, especially the more bold shades here, that have a high stain power. There's not a medium, it's either low or high. And I chose this one because I just felt like it's a color that I would continue to reach for if this worked out for me. And I was okay with the idea of this not necessarily being an intense stain that, you know, I didn't have to touch up throughout the day, because I felt like having that lip oil aspect to it would be something that I would want to continue reapplying throughout the day. So with that in mind, again, this is going to be a low stain. So we kind of have to adjust our expectations here, and that's kind of what I did whenever I did this wear test. The actual pigmentation, I would say, is pretty sheer as well. This does feel like a true lip oil, something that feels like it has a little bit of thickness but hydration behind it. It has a slight fruity scent that kind of goes in the direction of perfume versus lip product. It's not the worst, but it's also like I could do without it, you know? The applicator is this just plain plastic applicator. Oh, there's a lot of air within this tube. I thought it was super weird. Like when I was pushing it to apply it, you could hear like the air bubbles coming out. Not sure what that's about. Maybe again, it has something to do with the texture of this, but that's something to know. I felt like there was definitely not a lot of product in here, but I will say that when a product is labeled to have a specific ounce or, you know, gram amount in it, it has to be that amount. It's not the size of the tube, it's the actual amount of product in there. So I wouldn't say that they were lying about it, but I will say that I think this container has to be larger to allow for more air for some reason. I do think that the feel of this was very, very comfortable. I thought it was really nice on the lips, and the color, it was a very natural, very pretty color. It was exactly what I expected, to be honest with you guys. I thought it would be a little bit of this like pinky, rosy brown shade, and it was exactly that, except more on the sheer side for me. Okay, let's talk about the wear test. So for the first check-in, after having lunch, I was looking at this and you could still see it a little bit on the lips, but mostly on the outside lines of my lips lips kind of like a lip liner. I was surprised by that since again, this was going to be a more runny texture, but I was surprised you could see it at all, to be honest. I felt like since it was a low stain, I had very low expectations for the stainage as well, but it did deliver in the sense that there was a low stainage, and there was. It just ended up happening earlier than what I anticipated. The actual gloss of the oil had dissipated after lunch. This is the only one that I had reapplied because my lips felt dry after this disappeared, and I felt like if I didn't reapply it, we just wouldn't have any more check-ins throughout the day. So I went ahead and I reapplied this one. In the second check-in, it was still there, you could still see it, but it was slightly faded, and I had a good amount of the shine still. At this point, I hadn't eaten or drank anything additional after lunch, and I would say that it looked like more of a glossy lip balm than anything, and it was still really pretty. During the last check-in, I felt like my lips actually held on to the stain. Maybe it was because I applied it twice, so there was, you know, 2 layers of the stain, but I felt like you could still see it more than I anticipated. It looked very, very natural in my opinion, almost to the point where I couldn't tell if it was there. Again, kind of like the Gucci one, except it was even more natural than that one was. At the time that I did the check-in, I was really questioning if there was anything there, but looking back at the footage, I can see that it's definitely still there on my lips. I think that this was probably the best fade out of the bunch. And even though it faded earlier than some of the other ones, I do think that this had the best fading out of the bunch. There was no emphasis on my lip lines anywhere. The pigment wasn't pooling anywhere. It didn't look extremely dry. It just kind of felt dry. It felt drier than it looked in this case. There was no weird transition fade to this. I just felt like it was, you know, a very no fuss lip balm, lip oil type of product that had the benefit of having a little bit of a stain to it. Now, when I did have this on the lips, aside from when it had come off during lunch, I felt like this felt very hydrating as it was actively on my lips. I thought it was very comfortable in that sense. It's not going to be something that is super intense, which I didn't really mind because, you know, for an everyday lip color, I don't mind something that's slightly more sheer, but gives me a little bit of color to my pretty much very pale lip color. I think if you're looking for a lip product that fades extremely well and naturally, this is a good one. But to be honest with you guys, I don't think it's worth the price. I do think it's a really pretty, really nice product, but if what you're looking for again is going to be first and foremost a stain, I don't necessarily think this is going to be the product for you. I think that this is first and foremost a lip oil that has the benefits of a stain. Maybe I would feel differently if I picked up a different shade that had a high stainage power to it. Like I'm pretty sure the purple or the more like bold berry shade, those have very strong high pigment. And if that's the case, it probably will be something that is more worth the money. But this for me just felt like a really nice lip balm, lip oil type of thing. Now I do reach for this quite often because of those features. But the reason why it's ranked so high is because my experience with it was really nice and it felt like a more organic addition to my usual makeup routine. This is something that I could just reach for really easily, throw in my bag and not have to fuss with. So that's kind of why I decided to put it higher on the ranking system, because overall I just enjoyed this a lot more, and I do think that even though it was more of a sheer stain, it still did what it said it was going to do. And lastly, ranking number 1 out of all 5 of the products that I tested out for this video is going to be from Essence. This is the Hydra Kiss lip tint, and this one I got in the shade number 1, Blushing Nude, and overall I think that this is a very beautiful product. I would categorize this as having medium to full pigmentation. I felt like even though it was more of a serum texture, it was very opaque on the lips. It also has a very nice everyday finish. It's not too glossy. It has a little bit of something. It gives good hydration on the lips. I could wear this by itself. I could wear it with a lip liner. This again is going to be one that oxidizes, unfortunately. And I first swatched this and I was like, oh, it's going to be a beautiful, say it with me, nude color, nudie pink shade, but it does warm up just like a half step deeper. It's actually what I have on my lips right now. I do have a darker lip liner on and then I have this on the center, but you could definitely see that this swatch is not as deep as what's on the center of my lips here. On that first application, I did notice that this went slightly into the lip lines of the center of my bottom lip, just a little bit, not enough to where it was super obvious and I was seeing it in a mirror. I had to get super close just to inspect this a lot in order to see that, but it was happening. So if you do tend to have that happen with most lip products, then I have a feeling that might happen with this one. I kind of smushed my lips together and blended it out with my fingers. It goes away pretty easily. Now for the wear test, for the first check-in, I had lunch by now and it was evenly there, but there was some significant fading. You could definitely see that in the footage. There was no shine. It was mainly just the pigmentation, but I was pretty happy with the fade of this one. The lips felt like I could use some lip balm, but it didn't feel like dehydrated or anything. It just kind of felt like there was nothing on my lips, and I'm very used to having a lip product on my lips at all times. This is another case where I felt like it looked drier than it actually felt. And up until then, I thought it was wearing really nicely, but when I was really inspecting the lips for this check-in, I did notice a tiny bit of a weird fading on the inside of my lips. You can kind of see there's the pigment that's creating this like zigzag line with like a white sort of outline right next to it. I didn't notice it before that, and it was on the inside of my lips to where I felt like, you know, if I was just out and about, I wouldn't notice it, and I don't think anyone else would notice it. For the second check-in, I felt like it was still pretty prominent on the outsides of the lips. It faded pretty much only in the center of my lips at this point. You could still see the pigmentation, but again, it was going to be most of the fading in the center, and it gave more of that lip liner stain look, but the color was faded to where it wasn't so obvious, so I didn't mind it. And then the last check-in, we had dinner, we had Korean barbecue, we destroyed it. There was a lot of eating, a lot of drinking at this point. This check-in was like at midnight or something, so it was pretty much all gone. I had a little bit on the upper lip, but really it was not that much. There was significant fading with all of like the eating and drinking, I would say, because I had checked before eating and it was a little bit more there beforehand. Surprisingly, it withstood dinner more than I thought it would. So overall, I feel like the staining power on this one was really great. Now the fading, again, like I mentioned, I had a little bit of a weird thing going on in the inner portion, but I do like the way that it looked on the lips as was fading throughout the day. I would not mind just having that stain color and then, you know, topping it with like a clear balm or something like that if I had to. I definitely think this is worth the price. It is going to be the one that's the most inexpensive out of the bunch, but I think it's the one that performed the best, you guys. I was very surprised by how much I liked this, only because it started off kind of, again, like a liquid lipstick, and I'm usually like someone that likes something a little bit more on the sheer pigment side of things where you could see your actual lips under the color, but this one applied very nicely. You could blend this in really well. The staining was great. If what you're looking for is a glossy lip stain or staining product in general, this one definitely reigns supreme compared to the other ones. Okay guys, so that was my ranking for all of these brand new lip stain products. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought about all of these and if you've tried any of them, especially for the ones that didn't necessarily work that well for me. If you guys enjoyed this video, I'll leave our past lip stain video right here for you in case you are curious and want to see my thoughts on those. But until next time, you guys, please take care of yourselves and I will see you very soon. Bye.